Leviathan and Behemoth, myth or monster. In the heart of one of the oldest texts in human history, nestled within the poetic whirlwind of suffering, faith, and divine revelation, we meet two of the most enigmatic creatures ever recorded in sacred literature. Behemoth and Leviathan. Are they just animals? Metaphors? Symbols of ancient chaos? Or were they something else entirely? Today we dive deep into the world of the Book of Job and the ancient Near East to uncover the secrets behind these mythic beasts. Join us as we ask the ultimate question. Leviathan and Behemoth, myth or monster? Before we meet our creatures, we must understand the context in which they appear. The Book of Job is a literary and theological masterpiece. Composed in ancient Hebrew, possibly around the 6th century BCE, it tackles one of humanity's most profound questions. Why do the righteous suffer? Job, a man described as blameless and upright, loses everything. His children, his wealth, his health. His friends arrive not with comfort but condemnation, suggesting his suffering must be due to hidden sin. Yet Job maintains his innocence. Finally, in chapter 38, God responds, not with explanations, but with a thunderous monologue that stretches across 4 chapters. He doesn't answer Job's questions directly. Instead, God asks Job a series of rhetorical questions about the cosmos, nature, and the limits of human understanding. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, 2 creatures enter the scene, Behemoth in chapter 40 and Leviathan in chapter 41. But why? Why these beasts? And what do they mean? Meet Behemoth, Lord of the land. Let's begin with Behemoth. Here is how the text introduces him. Behold, Behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold, his strength is in his loins and his power in the muscles of his belly. Job 40 verses 15 to 16 ESV. Behemoth is described as a colossal, grass-eating creature. It has bones like bronze, limbs like bars of iron, and a tail that moves like a cedar. Some scholars have tried to identify Behemoth with a hippopotamus. After all, the hippo is a large, powerful herbivore that lives near rivers, which Behemoth is also said to inhabit. But there's a problem: its tail. A hippo's tail is, well, not very impressive. Certainly not like a cedar tree. Other theories suggest Behemoth could be an elephant or even a now extinct species. But many believe Behemoth isn't meant to represent any literal animal at all. In Hebrew, Behemoth is actually a plural form of behema, which simply means beast. But this plural may be an intensive plural, used for emphasis. Not many beasts, but the ultimate beast. Behemoth, then, is not just a big animal. He is the archetype of landbound power, a symbol of untamable natural strength. He is made by God but not controlled by man. Enter Leviathan, master of the deep. If Behemoth is a mystery, then Leviathan is a monster. Let's read from Job 41. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook or press down his tongue with a cord? His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. Out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of fire leap forth. Job 41:1 18-19 ESV. Fire? From a creature of the sea? Leviathan is described with almost dragon-like imagery, scales, fire, terror, impenetrable armor, and defiant pride. Some have suggested Leviathan could be a crocodile, just as Behemoth might be a hippo. But again, the poetic language stretches beyond zoology. Crocodiles don't breathe fire. And yet, Leviathan shows up elsewhere in Scripture. In Psalm 74, Leviathan is a sea monster defeated by God. In Isaiah 27 verse 1, he is a twisting serpent, a chaos beast that God will punish at the end of days. This paints a different picture. Leviathan isn't just a creature. He's an enemy of order, a symbol of chaos. Mythic parallels, the ancient Near East. To understand Leviathan and Behemoth, we need to zoom out and step into the broader world of ancient Near Eastern mythology. In Ugaritic texts, discovered in the ruins of Ras Shamra in modern Syria, we find stories of a storm god named Baal who does battle with Yam, the god of the sea, and Latan, a 7-headed sea serpent. Sound familiar? Latan is the linguistic cousin of Leviathan. Both names come from a shared Semitic root. In Babylonian myth, Marduk, the chief god, defeats Tiamat, a sea dragon of primordial chaos, and forms the world from her corpse. These myths share a common theme: creation through conflict. A god brings order by slaying a chaotic sea monster. But the Hebrew Bible offers something different. God doesn't slay Leviathan in Job. He merely describes him. He doesn't need to kill chaos. He tames it by existing. In Job, God essentially says, "You think you can understand justice? You can't even comprehend Behemoth or Leviathan. The creatures become part of God's divine portfolio, not enemies he must vanquish, but wild entities he masterfully controls. Literary structure, poetry, paradox, and power. The Book of Job is not a science textbook or a zoological guide. It is poetry, dense, layered, and symbolic. Behemoth and Leviathan appear not at the beginning, but at the climax of the divine speech. Their appearance is deliberate. Earlier, Job demands a courtroom-style reckoning with God. He wants answers. But God responds with a vision of vast, untamable creation. The literary structure mirrors a journey, from cosmic to earthly, from stars to storms, from lions to birds, and finally, to monsters. In rhetorical terms, God is employing a technique known as the a fortiori argument. If you can't control the monsters of nature, how can you hope to understand the justice of God? Behemoth and Leviathan are not digressions, they are the answer. Not a satisfying one, perhaps, but a humbling one. Metaphor or monster. So what are they? Literal animals? That's the traditional view held by many conservative interpreters. Perhaps ancient people exaggerated descriptions of real creatures. Metaphors for chaos? That's the view favored by many scholars. Behemoth represents untamed land, Leviathan, untamed sea. Together they are the boundaries of Job's world and his understanding. But there's a third possibility. What if they are literary manifestations of divine mystery? They don't need to be literal nor merely metaphor. They function as mythopoetic symbols, archetypes that carry weight beyond their physical description. In this reading, Behemoth and Leviathan are not just parts of creation, they are the edges of creation. The borderlands where logic breaks down, where human knowledge ends and the divine begins. Theological implications, God and chaos. In most ancient myths, chaos is evil. It must be conquered, slain, buried. But in Job, God doesn't destroy Behemoth or Leviathan. He celebrates them. On earth there is not his like, a creature without fear. Job 41 verse 33. This tells us something profound. Chaos is not outside of God's domain. It is part of his creation. That doesn't mean suffering is explained, but it is contained within a cosmos governed by a power greater than we can understand. It means that the God of Job is not merely a moral judge, but the sovereign architect of mystery. Behemoth and Leviathan in later traditions. Behemoth and Leviathan didn't stay in Job. They live on, in Jewish apocalyptic literature, Christian symbolism, and even pop culture. In 1 Enoch, Leviathan is a female sea monster, paired with the male land beast Behemoth. They are set aside for Judgment Day. In rabbinic tradition, some believe that at the end of time, the righteous would feast on the flesh of these beasts. In Christianity, Leviathan sometimes becomes a symbol of Satan or the Antichrist, an enemy of the divine order. Even in popular media, these creatures surface. From Cthulhu-like sea gods to kaiju monsters like Godzilla, the idea of vast, uncontrollable beasts remains embedded in our imagination. They speak to something deep in the human psyche, the fear and awe of the unknown. Lessons from the monsters. So what do Behemoth and Leviathan teach us? They remind us that the universe is not tame, that suffering may not always come with explanations, that not everything can be reasoned, solved, or subdued. They remind us of our limits and of the vastness of reality. But they also offer something more. A vision of a cosmos that is not ruled by fear, but by divine sovereignty. A world in which even monsters have a place. And maybe that's the deeper lesson. Not that the world is safe, but that it is held together by a God who understands its wildness better than we ever could. A lingering mystery. In the end, we are left where Job was, speechless. Not because we have no questions, but because we've glimpsed something beyond language. Whether Behemoth and Leviathan are myths, monsters, or metaphors, they endure. In every tale of dragons, in every story of battles between light and darkness, in every struggle to make sense of pain, we see their shadow. And perhaps like Job, that is enough. What do you think? Are Behemoth and Leviathan real animals long extinct? Mythological echoes of Near Eastern legends? Or divine symbols woven into the fabric of the universe? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with fellow truth seekers and mythology fans. And be sure to stay tuned for our next deep dive. The Nephilim, giants, hybrids, or misunderstood? We'll explore the mysterious sons of God, the daughters of men, and the giants that walk the ancient earth. Until then, stay curious and stay brave.